became a chaotic mess. The judge frowned and slammed his gavel down. Order! Since both parties have conflicting statements, please present your respective evidence. At his words, Tiffany's lawyer immediately stood up, stating righteously, Your Honor, my client has sufficient evidence to prove that the defendant, Buddy, assaulted my client, Tiffany. She motioned for Tiffany to recount the events of that night. Tiffany took a deep breath, her voice trembling as she began to describe the alleged incident. That night at 10 o'clock, I was walking home from tutoring, and the elevator in that building was broken, so I had to take the stairs. Just as I reached the 26th floor, someone suddenly covered my mouth from behind. I struggled desperately, but Buddy was very strong. He dragged me directly to the rooftop, threatening me to play with him. I raised an eyebrow and pressed her. How are you so sure that person was my son, Buddy? Tiffany met my gaze, choking back a sob. I definitely know. I saw his face. Buddy forced me to take off my clothes, and I desperately shook my head, refusing. But he just raised his hand and grabbed my neck. He said he'd choke me to death if I didn't obey him. I was too scared, so I had no choice but to give in. Boo-hoo. By this point, she was crying so hard she could barely breathe, clutching tightly at the hem of her clothes. Everyone sympathized with her plight, but only I knew she was lying. I pointed it out publicly. Tiffany, you're lying. Tiffany flinched, trembling all over, then uncontrollably shrieked back at me. Lying? Cassandra, why would I lie about something so sacred as my purity? Why are you so cruel and keep pushing me? Just look at my injuries. Look at how your son tortured me. She frantically tore at her clothes, revealing more bruises of varying depths. Tiffany's lawyer hugged the distraught Tiffany, sternly scolding me. Defendant, how dare you say my client is lying? Tiffany's injuries are irrefutable proof. Your baseless accusation is a second victimization of the victim. I coldly looked at the indignant lawyer, saying each word distinctly. If she had truly seen my son, she wouldn't be saying such ridiculous things. The day my son and I moved, the only child Brenda and Tiffany saw was me. My son, Buddy, had never shown his face to them, not once. If they had ever seen my son, they would absolutely never pin a crime like assault on him. Tiffany's lawyer scoffed at my words. Defendant, is your son some kind of celebrity that my client Tiffany would be so eager to tarnish her own reputation just to falsely accuse him? Tiffany chimed in. I really did see Buddy. I saw him coming out of his house when I was going to tutoring. We rode the elevator down together, and he said his name was Buddy, and he was the new neighbor. Brenda pointed her finger at me, screaming, You, Cassandra! Don't think you can muddy the waters here and get your son off the hook? Tiffany saw your son with her own eyes. She even knows his name. You can't deny it. I watched the mother and daughter play off each other, finding it laughable. Tiffany spoke with such conviction because the hallway and the rooftop were surveillance blind spots. The mother and daughter exploited those blind spots, which is why they dared to fabricate such blatant lies. I didn't bother arguing with them further. Instead, I turned to the judge. Your Honor, the plaintiff's testimony contains numerous contradictions and inconsistencies. It's simply not enough to corroborate the alleged assault by my son, Buddy. Brenda, seeing the judge acknowledge my point, grew anxious. She abruptly stood up from her chair, pointing her finger at me, shrieking, Contradictions? Inconsistencies? You, Cassandra, stop trying to confuse everyone. Every word my daughter says is true, and her injuries are the proof. I smirked. You want to convict my son with just a couple of sentences? The law isn't something you can fool around with. Brenda's face flushed with anger at my words, and Tiffany almost fainted from crying. The jury members thought I was being unreasonable, and their criticisms grew louder. This woman is absolutely infuriating. She's still making excuses at this point. Why wasn't it her child who was assaulted? The mother is so trashy, no wonder her son is a monster. They spoke one after another, trying to force me into submission. But I stood tall, my back straight, my cold gaze sweeping over the jury. I sneered, Everyone, the truth has not yet been determined. Don't let yourselves be used as pawns. They didn't know the facts and were just spouting nonsense based on their so-called sense of justice. Truly foolish. My words choked them for a moment, then someone retorted, Used as pawns? Your son